Hello, I'm John Elliott and welcome to Spot On, the podcast that talks to people involved in business and public life about ideas to help Britain win. My background is manufacturing. I love making things, and I'm always looking at ideas, policies, products and services that make this country a better place. That means they are spot on. Today I'm talking to the councillor Meika Smiles. Meika started her career in journalism, writing for several North East and national papers. When her children's school missed out on funding it had been promised, she decided to get involved in local politics. Today she is the Deputy Mayor of Middlesbrough, a town in the North East at the heart of the Red Wall politics. It's quite a big jump from journalism into politics. How different are these two different worlds?
I would say they're very, very different. So I became a journalist after going to university. Started my life off at the Hartlepool Mail as a general reporter. Then I went to the Chronicle Journal and Sunday Sun in Newcastle. I was there for a while and I absolutely loved it. I loved being a journalist. I loved finding stories, and when things went online and digital, rather than feeling like I was writing into a bit of a black hole, you start to get that feedback from your readers, and that was something that I really thrived off. And actually, when you're talking about the difference between journalism and politics, that's something that I feel is transferred. So it's really important to come up with ideas that people like and that they engage with. And I think another skill is communication. So it's really important to be able to communicate what you're about, your policies, and I feel like that's something that I can do quite well.
You think journalists have changed? They used to be, I think, more independent and more interested in looking at the facts.
Yeah.
Now they seem to have more about opinions themselves that they're trying to propagate.
Yeah.
Would you say that's reasonably true?
I think as somebody that served in local media, we always kind of signed up for being as balanced and as factual as possible. I suppose, I don't know, I think it kind of gives journalists a bad name to say that. And I think for the main part...
A bad name to say that they're balanced?
To say that they're unbalanced
to
say
balanced.
that they're biased, yeah. Because I think, you've got to go through very rigorous training to become a journalist.
We're all biased, aren't we?
We are all biased. But I think as a journalist, you've got to shelve those biases and make sure that you're presenting the facts as accurately as possible.
And that's a conscious thing you've got to work on.
I think so. I think it's a skill in itself, and it's something that you're trained to do.
Do you think it's getting less, though? Do you think more, even news programmes now, where people who actually say that I'm a Remainer or a Leaver, more than used to be the case?
Yeah, it's something that irritates me, I've got to say. If I see a journalist come out very stridently against, for example, the Conservatives, it does irk me, because I think the most important thing about being a journalist is making sure that you're presenting facts.
Right. So totally different to politics then.
No, I think, it's very important to be honest with people when you're a politician.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
You find that difficult, or?
No, I think I am somebody that I find it quite difficult to lie. And I, to the very best of my ability, I just try and be honest with people.
Okay. Yeah. And you think, you must hope to make a difference as well.
Yeah.
What does that entail on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so it's a vast role, really. Somebody asked me the other day, what do you actually do? And it's quite difficult as a politician to answer that, because I think for everybody it's different. So obviously, first and foremost, I was elected as a councillor to serve Nunthorpe. And I've got to really always keep that at the front of my
And are you still councillor for Nunthorpe as well?
I'm still councillor for... That's what I was elected to do. So it's really important that that's, forever my priority, really, because those are the people that elected me. So part of my day is dedicated to answering any questions or concern from my residents in Nunthorpe. In terms of Deputy Mayor, then along with Andy, the independent mayor, and the rest of the executive, we set the strategic direction for the council. So we're the ones that, decide what direction we want the council to be heading in, really. So there's lots of, a list as long as your arm of things that we're wanting to achieve. So we as politicians try and, make sure that happens.
But that must be quite different. The strategy must be different to the day-to-day problems as a councillor, because I suspect there's lots of trivial things you get as a councillor, and you can't disregard them, I guess.
You absolutely can't
that
disregard them. That
must take a lot of time. It's probably a waste of your time, actually.
No, it's not a waste of my time. I think what I don't do is dedicate a certain amount of time to being a ward councillor and a certain amount of time to being deputy mayor. Throughout my day, there's different parts of the day that I spend on different things. But I've got to make sure that I'm looking after my residents first and foremost. That's
first and foremost, rather than the deputy mayor?
I think so, yeah, because those residents are the ones that elected me, so I can't ever forget that.
No, I'm not saying they're not important, but probably more important to Middlesbrough is that we get the strategy right.
Yeah, it's very, very important.
And even into your constituency as well,
absolutely.
Of course.
So, as Deputy Mayor, I'm actually also lead member for Children's Services. So that's looking after children's services at Middlesbrough Council, which is a huge, monumentally important task. So that's children in care, it's education for the influence that we still have, because obviously there's been the academisation of schools. So that is really important. And in 2019, Ofsted came in and said that we were failing as an authority in every single area of children's services. So we've been on something called an
children's services. That's not just education, then.
No, so it's social workers, children in care, children at risk of coming into care.
Now, in those tasks, you really implement government policy, don't you?
Oh, we've got to.
Government set the policy for education and social, and you just implement that. You sort of simply cog in the wheel. You don't.
Well, no, we've got a huge team of social workers.
But how they carry out their duties is determined by other people. Yeah,
we've got a statutory
same as
role.
School. That's right. The schools, their curriculum is determined by Westminster.
Well, not necessarily. So academies have a lot of autonomy in what they do.
But academies don't come under you. Is that correct or not?
No, we've got something called nudging influence when it comes to academies.
Right.
So it's really important that we have good relationships with them. But in terms of a council, we've got two statutory things that we look after, which is school places, and it's also making sure that children attain well, they do well in their exams, and we've got.
So I think exams are important.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
More important than life skills, or.
I think it's a mix.
Academia is more important to you than general life skills.
I wouldn't say that. No, I think academia is very important. But for example,
and the others are not as important.
No, for example, he's trying to put me on the spot here.
Well, no, I'm just trying to get you confirmed what you're saying.
Well, what I will say is in Middlesbrough, particularly after COVID, what I think is really important is all of that enrichment stuff that goes on in schools. So
enrichment stuff. Go on.
So
what's that really mean?
We have got something that I've been really passionate about is. I read about a scheme which is headed up by Andrew Lloyd Webber's charity, where he gets all children in a secondary school learning a musical instrument, and we've brought that to Middlesbrough. So we've got one of our secondary schools in Middlesbrough where the whole of Year 7 are learning violin, which is astounding. And I actually went down to London to watch a selection of these kids perform on stage for Andrew Lloyd Webber on London South Bank, and to have something like that to put on your CV and to carry that with you for life, I think is really important, just as important as the academic stuff.
Okay. It always seems to me, actually, that most useful jobs are done by people who didn't learn that in the education system, learned it on the job.
Okay.
Talking about builders.
Yeah.
People who get our food, people who work in shops, people who work in hospitality, people who work in factories.
Yeah.
Even doing complicated things. The only thing they learn from our education system, is to read and write, which is very important.
Yeah.
Now, there was a view at one time that people should be able to pass an examination to leave school. Mm-hmm. And as soon as you can pass that examination, they can leave school and get on with their real lives. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
I don't subscribe to that, but I think...
I thought you might not.
No, I think that school, I think going to university, going to college, it gives you a certain grounding. So if there was an employer...
It's very expensive just to get grounding, isn't it? Wouldn't it be better to get out in real life and make a living, earn a living, instead of... For those people who don't want to be academic, I agree, we need a number of academic people. But the people who do the real work, the shortage we've got today are not economists or lawyers, it's lorry drivers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you don't learn to drive a lorry in a classroom or a university.
No, I think it's important to have a mix. I
That's
really
right.
do.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
We need about 10% academics and 80% useful people.
Okay. Well, I went to
the useful people put the shirt on our backs,
Yeah.
put the food on the table,
Yeah.
the roof over our head, give us the appliances, make all these things in here are made by people who learned those skills in the job.
Not necessarily. So engineers, for example, would have
Like
to go.
me.
Yeah, and like my brother, he's an engineer.
I never went to university, by the way.
And well, my brother did go to university, and he is very well trained engineer, and he's designed things to go into vehicles, drive us around, get us from A to B. So I think it's important. I understand what you're saying. But
I think you probably could have done that without going to university. You see, if you've got these talents, like creativeness, you're born with.
Do you think?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Or you think?
I think you can develop creativity.
You can learn. Mm-hmm. I think we fit into groups. Some people are more creative than others, naturally. Mm-hmm. Some people are good at football. Mm-hmm. Some people are good at musical instruments. And I think I could never sing.
No, neither can I.
Or play football as good as Gaza. Ever. Because he was born with those skills. And we're all different. We're all born with certain things. Mm-hmm. And they need to be developed. Yeah. But I just think our education system is so paranoid about learning to do quadratic equations, which no one ever uses in their life.
Yeah. I get that. I think
if I was king for a day,
yeah,
I would get rid of education and focus on development of children from birth to adulthood.
Yeah.
And each one's different. Not one size fits all, which education tends to be. Look at the individual child. What do they need to have a fulfilling life?
Yeah, and I think actually when you look at schools that are very successful and do very well, it's that holistic approach. It's when schools are looking at the whole child rather than just academia. So I think.
But our system of education doesn't encourage that, even less so now.
Well, I think it does actually. Through the academisation process, it's meant that schools can have their own identity and focus on their own priorities.
Middlesbrough is often cited as top of the list for deprivation, poverty and unemployment.
Yeah.
Is that the truth?
We are at the top of many, many lists that we don't want to be at the top of.
And why is that?
Well, I think that it's a generational problem. And I don't think, we know that it's not one that could be easily fixed, because if it was, then it would have been fixed already. For example, we've got problems when it comes to health, we've got problems with employment, we've got problems with drugs, we've got, in all of the lists that you don't want to be at the top of, we're at the top of, basically. I think levelling up is something that I'm a huge advocate of, and I think there's been some good quick wins, I would call them, in TESA, but I think now's the time really to look at those statistics you're talking about over 10 to 15 years and have some really sort of crystallised goals of what we're going to be aiming for to really actually make a difference and change things around.
So do you think it's the people that are born in Middlesbrough are different, or the environment that's created that?
No, I think it's, we were an industrial town going back many decades, and that's obviously, it's totally changed. There isn't the steel and iron industry anymore. We're trying to pivot that at the moment to become like a more, green industry with teas works and things like that. So that's what we need to focus on now. It's about making sure that there's the jobs, but also those skills that you were talking about.
What do you think is a good job? We often talk about good jobs, don't we? We want more good jobs.
Yeah.
What in your opinion, would be a good job?
Well, I think it depends on the person. For example, I went into PR for a bit and I didn't enjoy it, so that wasn't a good job for me.
Right. So it's got to suit the person.
I think it's got to suit the person.
That makes sense, actually, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. And I think we should focus more. I just feel the education system, even long time since I was in the system, it seems to be more focused on examinations.
Yeah.
And examinations don't always measure the right things.
No.
You can be good at passing examinations, but not necessarily good at doing things.
Yeah, and I think it's important, at the moment, how much are life skills taught in schools for, budget management and running a household and cooking healthy meals and all of that kind of stuff.
See, I think cooking actually is fairly easy to learn as well, isn't it?
Well, my husband wouldn't agree.
Right. He doesn't want to do it, does he? Not?
No, he doesn't think that I'm a particularly good cook. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that can't be true, though. Can it?
No, it's not true
No,
at
but
all.
I mean, it's different levels of.
Yeah.
There's one thing being a chef, isn't there? Another thing being a cook, isn't it? I think it's.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's difficult to produce decent food.
No.
Healthy, enjoyable food.
Yeah.
If you were the Prime Minister today, and you could do one or two things, what would they be?
Well, I'm not sure that we'd have a Prime Minister that spends as much time on TikTok as I do. However, if I was Prime Minister, I think what's really important is getting onto the housing ladder. And actually, I think that we need to really make sure that it's not just an aspiration for people, it's something that, you know, the vast majority of people can achieve.
That's buying a house rather than renting one.
Buying one, yeah, I think it's really important.
That's quite a UK thing, isn't it? In places like Germany, people normally rent.
Yeah.
And I don't think it matters whether you rent a house or rent money, as long as you've got somewhere to live that suits you.
No, I'm a big believer in house ownership because I think a lot of things flow from that. So you might want to make home improvements. That means that you're really motivated to get out there into the world, to find a job you want, to make sure that you can, you know, improve your home.
But you're very ambitious, aren't you, see? You'll be far more ambitious than most people.
Okay.
And these people who are less ambitious aren't necessarily bad people. They're just less ambitious.
Absolutely not. But that's why I think home ownership's important, because I think it gives people something that all people deserve, somewhere to call home.
Oh, wait, I think if you can rent somewhere and call it home, actually.
Yeah, possibly. I don't think that there's that certainty around renting in this country, at least.
Okay. So you've got some very good conservative views there.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Mieka, for your time today. And thank you for listening to this edition of Spot On podcast. Like and subscribe and keep in touch for future editions.